I think rather than assuming it's going to go back to the way it was, in which kids were told to go outside and don't come back in until the street lights come on, I think that we need new ways to connect to nature. My kids did not get the kind of free-range childhood that I did. They didn't have that total freedom, but we made sure we lived on a canyon where they could go down and build their fort within eyesight. They didn't know they were being watched a lot, but they were. And to have more freedom than that. But when we took them into nature, it became a conscious choice. Increasingly, it's going to have to be a conscious choice. If not the parents, then great programs, for instance, like Wilderness Inquiries here in Minneapolis, has to be a conscious choice. One of the techniques that's emerged is, a few years ago, a young father and teacher wrote me and said that he and his wife had read Last Child. They started getting their kids outdoors, going to the park as a family, going on hikes. And one day the 5-year-old said, "Dad, how come we're the only family having this much fun?" So he and his wife started asking other families, and pretty soon they had 800 families on their mailing list. They formed a club, and what these families do is they, 2, 3, 5, 8 families at a time agree to show up at the park or somewhere else, do gardening, go on a hike together, do something as multiple families together. There are now, I think, about 200 of these family nature clubs. You can download a free toolkit from the Children Nature Network to start your own. You don't have to wait for foundation funding, or any kind of family can do this. I mean, it's terrific for single-parent families, for instance. It's terrific for parents that did not have much nature when they were kids, to be with other families that do know how to do it. In San Diego, where I'm from, the Family Nature Club there has over 1,000 families. What if there were 5,000 family nature clubs in the next couple of years? That's cultural change. And it deals with the fear issue, and there's a perceived safety in numbers. Also, believe it or not, what we've learned is that if a family takes their children out, just with the kids tend to be clingy and want to get back to the video game. And if you go with other families, the kids are off and they're running and they're doing what kids did for millennia, okay? So it is a kind of independent play, maybe not solitary. I want to add one thing to our conversation, though, and it has to do with health. I think the #1 mental health issue that our society has today is how we talk to our children and how do we talk to ourselves about the future. I've become convinced that most Americans carry around images in their head that are incredibly dominant images of the far future, even if it's subconscious. And that future looks a lot like Blade Runner or Mad Max, or at best the Hunger Games. At least there's a few trees in the Hunger Games. It's a post-apocalyptic future. The #1 young adult fiction genre today is called dystopic fiction. It's about a post-apocalyptic world in which not even vampires are having a good time. And I'm not against dystopic fiction. 1984 was a good warning. And some of these books are great books that are out. That's not the point. The point is, do we have another set of images of a wonderful, beautiful, better future that we're carrying around in our heads as a culture? At best, we've got a kind of robots are us future, not very satisfying, or a sustainable future. Got to do that. That's the bare minimum. But most people interpret sustainability as energy efficiency. And it kind of stops there, right or wrong, it kind of stops there. I sat with students recently at DePaul University, one young woman, very hip young woman. I knew she was hip because she had tattoos. She said, I'm 20 years old, and all my life I've been told it's too late. I thought, oh my God, she's right. That's been the major media mantra. Yes, other messages are out there, but that's what my profession has been saying in so many words and so many images for about that. Environmentalism too, and I'm an environmentalist, but environmentalism too has been doing that to a degree. Do we have a set of images? Martin Luther King said and demonstrated many ways that any movement, any culture will fail if it cannot paint a picture of a world that people will want to go to. One of the most important things that we can do for our children's mental health, our mental health. And truly the future of our civilization is to begin to think in larger ways, to begin to reclaim the courage to be idealistic. So I talk a lot less now about sustainability and a lot more about a nature-rich future. Nature-rich cities, nature-rich schools, nature-rich workplaces, nature-rich homes and yards, a nature-rich life for future generations and for our children and ourselves right now. That's a very different way to frame the future.